It's always my privilege to get to bring a report about our prison project. If you don't know what the prison project is, it is something we started in 2015. We were at a leadership meeting. We were just looking for something that we could all rally around. It seems like over the years that the Lord has used projects within AFCM. Our friends talking about the Russians impacted, that was a project that AFCM did. They had a project, they put the Josiah on the Amazon River, and that was a project. Well, this is one of the projects that AFCM does, and there was a door of opportunity in Kenya to be able to get inside the prisons. Jenny Roberts, a member of AFCM, she's a director in Africa, and they were already working in a couple of prisons, and they had ITC in it, just 2 or 3. And so these, within the prison, the inmates would go through the school. They'd have a graduation. They were just having tremendous success. And the national prison system recognized the success. They would see a distinct difference in these men and women's lives when they would attend the Bible school. It all the way to where it would impact the behavior and the interactions between the officers, the guards, and the inmates. They would just see this distinct difference. Well, they told her that that they would give her many licenses or permits, they call them, to be able to get within the prisons. At this point, we have 80. And now we're not using all 80, but that's how many we have opened up to us. We use this verse in Luke 1:7, if we can get our PowerPoint up. Luke 1:7 says this: to give life to those who sit in darkness and the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the way of peace. Now, it's been my privilege. I get there to go over and to represent AFCM as we go to Africa every year, and I go to see what's happening, to make sure that it's running well. And listen, we got a good partner over there, but and so I'm there to to also tell them that you're being prayed for, that you're being cared about, that people are thinking about you. Everybody needs to be loved on a little bit. And then it's also my privilege to come back and share with you then what is happening there in Kenya. So what we have is we've developed a partnership between AFCM and Disciples of Mercy. What we have over here is that we have ministers, we have churches and ministries and individuals that take seriously taking the gospel into all the world. There are doors that open. Well, we don't know if this door will stay open forever, but as long as it's open, we're trying to walk through it in just a broad of manner and an effective manner as we possibly can. And so we have resources. We have people with vision. We have folks that want to take the gospel around the world. And then we have a partner in Africa, Disciples of Mercy, and what they have there is favor with the prison system. And as a result, this opens up this effective door of ministry. Now, we first started, again, there's been a Bible school in a prison in Kenya from 2006 until 2015, but it was just a handful of schools. Well, then we expanded the project. Our first goal was to try to reach 40. It took us several years to get to 40, but we were able to achieve that. And now we've had 40 more opened up to us. But originally, we were there to do this, was to have ITC, and if you guys, okay, I won't pay any more attention to it. You guys just kind of follow, and I'll introduce them. And so originally, all we were doing was going in, we was putting Bible schools in prisons, doing graduations, and just seeing tremendous results, lives being changed. Within the prisons, this is the group, there's no other group when it comes to being pardoned or released early that even comes close to what the Bible school students do. We get so many that get pardoned early that it affects the numbers that we're able to get graduated. many times. But listen, if you're in the prison, yeah, we want them to graduate, but if you're in prison, you trust me, you want out. You know, it's not like the county jail here, and the county jail here is no good place to be. You understand? And so, first of all, we got ITC, 2-year Bible school program. Then, as a result of that, well, we begin to do chaplains training and retreats. So we got a second element going to it. Well, then after going several years, Brother Caseman and myself and Miss June and Jenny went to lunch at the end of chaplain's retreat in 2019. Reverend Johnson Gutumu, and he is the head of the chaplains. They call it rehabilitation services over there. He's the head of all that. He's out of Nairobi. And he would come every year when we would do these big events for the, well, I guess that was just the second year. But he'd come both years, and he's been there every year since. But he looks at us, Jim, we get to the end of dinner, and he says, you know, our officers have needs also. You know, it's just like, I believe it was John this morning that was talking, no, it was Jim last night. And he was talking about, you know, that a lot of times people look at ministers and they say, gosh, they got it all together. Why would they ever need help in their marriage? And why would they ever have financial problems? And why would they ever have drinking in their background? I mean, they're ministers, they got it all together. Well, I think the same. People might look at a prison and they say, well, the guards, they got it all together because they're watching the inmates. But they got their own set of problems. And so he looks at us and he says, you know, the officers say to me, people are always doing things for the inmates. And he was right. There's churches that send Coca-Cola to the prisons so they have a Coca-Cola to drink. They send soap and washcloths and toiletries, toothpaste. They got programs. They send them athletic equipment and Bible schools. And the officer looked at Reverend Katumu and said, nobody ever does anything for us. And Reverend Johnson looks across the table at Jim and myself and he says, can we do anything for the officers? So out of that was born the third element. And so when our AFCM churches invest in this, we started out just doing one thing. And it's turned into 3 things that are very effective. That's the Bible schools. It's the chaplain's training. And it's this third element called the Centurion Project. So let me pick up the pace, and I can hit a lot in a short period of time. Now, this AFCM, Disciples of Mercy, we've got right now, all right, it ebbs and flows sometimes. You know, people's circumstances change, their finances change, and we've been up to 55 several times. We're back up to 55. In the last month, we've had two more sponsors come on board. We had dropped back to 53 from about September till just this last month. But we got 55 Bible schools that are sponsored, and so let me just talk about the same element. Now, once again, a sponsorship does all those things, though. The sponsorship doesn't just take care of Bible schools, but it's putting on a chaplain's conference, and they come and they spend the night, and we feed them, and it's providing this outreach to the officers. We'll talk about that a little bit more as we get to the close. Now, from 2015 to 2023, again, they've been running one from 2006 to 2015 in a handful of prisons. But from 2015 to 2023, AFCM, ITC, has graduated 12,860. By June, it will be over 13,000 graduates. We're talking about graduating men and women. Many of them had been hardened criminals. There's a man who graduated AFCM ITC that they lived in a community where there was a witch doctor, and him and his brother, that witch doctor was so evil, had such control on them, they killed the witch doctor, serving life without parole. But his life's been glorious, saved and changed by the Word of God, by sitting under anointed teaching, by learning line upon line, precept upon precept. We have men and women who graduate and they become parts of local churches. We have men and women pastoring churches in Kenya and in Uganda. 12,860 graduates. That is changing prisons. It changes the atmosphere in the prisons. That's why they're so inviting. Every event that, now once I go representing you, if you went, it would be the same thing. Bill's just the messenger. Every event that AFCM was putting on that I was there, they had an official from Nairobi attend that event to say thank you. Every graduation I did, every training I did, they showed up at everything. They recognize what God's doing. And you understand, we're talking about a nation that probably the predominant denomination over there is Anglican. And you understand their theology is not the same. But they see the difference. Again, now this year, from February, when we met here last year, 2022, through February 2023, this year we graduated 1,358 graduates. Now that number could be twice that. They have overcrowding problems within their prisons. You can understand, as it has in our country, the lockdowns just created a lot of difficulties. And so their prisons are overcrowded. So they release people. They think that, listen, we've seen change in their lives. We think that they could live a productive life. But even at that, we've graduated 1,358. That includes 127 officers and staff. That number is starting to grow and is going to continue to grow, because when we get them into the Centurion program, we're pushing the Bible school. Enrollment this year was 3,343. You can see there is a discrepancy between that and graduation. Now, some of these have not graduated yet, but they're sitting right now in classes. We got 2,641 sitting in classes, either in first year or second year. The prison project outreaches this year. They ministered to, beyond having the Bible school, AFCM goes in and they hold seminars and rallies and just go in and do meetings. They ministered to 7,414 people. This year, within this outreach in the prisons and through the Centurion Project, now it's a much smaller number, but 1,275 people were born again. You understand, we're getting crusade benefits, all right? And I'm all about crusades, all right? I'm for whatever God's using. We're getting crusade benefits out of having Bible schools within the prisons. ITC, I'll share this with you, that one of the things that we've needed to do was get it into their language. So they have more than a working understanding of English, but again, it's not their primary language. Almost all of them speak 3 languages. They speak their tribal language. There's 34 of them. 34. They're distinct languages. They will not understand. If a Lou is sitting there and speaking, and somebody's from the Maasai tribe, they have no clue what they're saying. All right. So they all speak Swahili. They're fluent in it. Getting the Bible school in the Swahili is going to expand the numbers of people that are going to be able to sit in class and be able to get the information and get the truth in their hearts that's going to be necessary. So we've finished the first year and we're nearing completion of the second year. Now in 2020, the prison project did this. We raised a little money. I think we raised about $3,000. We made an appeal to AFCM churches, and they were already doing a great job month to month. Our AFCM family is on time. They're faithful in their giving, even through the pandemic. They were just wonderful. So we raised about $3,000, and during the pandemic they couldn't do much, so they built a little bit of money up. So we put, and so when you have 55 prisons, which are stretched out all over the nation of Kenya, and when you have 55 prisons, you've got 2 years of school. You can graduate in year 1 and you can graduate in year 2. And so, you potentially, like the prison that Jim and Kathleen have sponsored in Kisumu, all these years, they do 2 to 3 graduations at Kisumu every year. They have good chaplains there, and they really work it, all right? Well, several of them are doing 2 a year. So you're talking about in excess of 100 graduations. Well, sometimes you're going to send people two different directions. They were using vehicles that wore all the way out. So they bought a van, a Hiace, a Toyota Hiace van, put $7,000 down. They financed 2,500 of it. Made a payment then for, until paid off just this month. Here's a picture of the van. It's paid in full. All right. You understand, we did no extra, apart from the fundraising. Give the Lord a hand. Amen. We're grateful. We're grateful. Grateful for their stewardship over there and managing the money well. We've not come back and, gosh, guys, because they got to have a vehicle. And when you drive, those are rough roads. And you should be looking forward to it, Jane. They got a road going into Disciples of Mercy. I call it Uncle Bumpy. Yeah. Uncle Bumpy's that bad relative that you hope never shows up, but he keeps coming back. Well, that's Uncle Bumpy. Yeah, you'll be introduced just as soon as you come in. You won't miss it, Jeff. You'll say, this is what Bill was talking about. Now, Dale says when he comes, they grade the road. They've never graded the road for me. So I trust that they don't grade the road for Jeff either. I want him to get the full experience. And when you're driving in Kenya, they don't have speed limit signs and stuff like this. They control traffic through speed bumps. You'll be out in the middle of nowhere, and there's a speed bump. And if you don't slow down, it just knock the front end plumb out from under your car. And I've often said they could have real good roads if they would just level out all them speed bumps that they got around the country. But nonetheless, that's a four-wheel drive van. And when it's wet, you got to have a four-wheel drive to get around the country. I'm right on it. Mike's been there numerous times, not only with it through AFCM, but he's got a friend over there, Shadrack's his name? Yes. And so anyway, that's paid for. So what's going to happen is that they're going to begin to set that money aside every month, and they're going to buy a second vehicle because many times AFCM has to go two directions. We got 4 full-time people and 1 part-time person working for AFCM, and then Pastor Titus, the pastor of the church, often helps, and of course Reverend Jenny does. This next one I need to just keep moving is we do a chaplains conference every year. This has proved to be a very beneficial. And so we bring these chaplains in, and I would say this about the chaplains and the officers both. You can't imagine the horrific things they see when they walk behind the wall. You just can't, just unimaginable. Things that would be hard to get out of your head. Sexual assault, violence. And those men and women have to walk behind that wall every day. Many of these prisons, there's 2 chaplains, and there may be 2,000 inmates. 2,000 inmates that are separated from their families, that their families can't afford to come see them, who are having difficulties at home. Difficult circumstances. And we learn when we bring them in, and this year I took my theme from Family Reunion about how Isaac digged again the wells. Because when these men and women, by the time they get to an event like this, they're pretty wore out. They're spiritually and emotionally spent. They're not ministering in air conditioning and carpet. Sometimes rough concrete is as good as it gets. Sometimes it's a tin roof with 100-degree heat beating down on it with the sun. And again, and they deal with their problems. And remember, they're clay feet. And they got problems at home. And they got problems with finances. They got their own personal challenges. And so, my goodness, and so we, you go to a place like that. I like to preach. I've got a little preach in me. I'm pretty Pentecostal, and I lose 5-6 pounds every time I go over there. Just wringing wet. No, when I'm done, I'm wringing wet. And but you know what? What a privilege to love on those men and women who are working in a vineyard that I'm not called to. And I might say in some ways, What a hard place to be called to. But somebody has to be there, Roy. Just like somebody's got to be in Houston, Missouri. I got to be in Houston, Missouri. I got to pick up the pace. So we bring them in, we minister to them, we feed them, we love on them, we hug them, we pray for them, we get them spirit-filled. They're not all spirit-filled, you understand. In the prison that you're talking about, we had 53 prisons represented. 80 chaplains were there. Again, the deputy director was there. That was Reverend Johnson Katumu. The regional director was there. He's Reverend Moses, very supportive of what we're doing. I show a picture of this stool because I got a wrap. You know, we got AFCM and Disciples of Mercy have a partnership. But to run these Bible schools, if you don't have that third leg, it doesn't happen. So their help is necessary, and so we bring them in and we try to talk to them about the benefits, because we're asking them, Brother Roy, to do one more thing, one more big thing, one more time-consuming thing, one more labor-intensive thing. Run a Bible school. But we tell them, we're giving you tools. You can disciple inmates. You can raise up leaders. And boy, they have bought into this. I found a chaplain there in Kisumu. What he's done is he's raised up 22 leaders. It has 11 cell blocks in his prisons. Each one of his cell blocks has 2 leaders that came up through the Bible school. Well, now see, the rest of these guys have caught on to this. Within Kisumu prison, the prisoners do the evangelism. They pastor the inmates, and they run the Bible school. Well, now we've not just asked them to do one more thing, we've lifted a load off of their shoulders. Again, we tell them we can change the environment of your prison. More importantly, we can change hearts. We can renew minds. We can bring men and women into a saving knowledge of Christ. We can get them set free. Then you can reintroduce them into society and they'll succeed. I mentioned that Reverend Johnson Katumas asked us this, if we would start a project. If we would do something for their officers. We call this the centurion. You understand, the Roman centurion came to Christ. He was an officer. So we call it the Centurion Project. There are 25,000 officers, so it's a great door, another great door of opportunity for us. All this goes within the support that you give every month. So we did our first year, we did it right there at Disciples of Mercy. We had 8 come from one prison, 8 from another. We had 16 people. We raised them up. We poured our hearts into them for 2 days. Taught 6 hours a day for 2 days. Sent them home. They were all excited. That we had great testimonies. Didn't start one small group. Gosh, I thought, golly. We went back this year, all right? And so we had 4 prisons come together. Kisumu Main, Kisumu Women's, and then Kibos has a main prison, and they have a medium security prison. So we got these 2 prisons, all right? They represent 2 different, a medium security and a women's, and a maximum security and a medium security men's. And so we do these 2 seminars. They last 2 days. Got 50 people at each of them. And again, I know, because Reverend Johnson's told me, and then I got online and did my homework. And so this is what we try to do. We talk to them about salvation, marriage, finances, addiction, gambling, and listen to this last one, suicide. In Kenya, the most endangered population is a Kenyan officer. They commit suicide at an alarming rate. 30 days before we arrived in September at Kisumu, Maine, one of the guards took his life in front of his co-workers with a gun. His wife had been telling him, we're hungry, we're starving at home, they're having financial trouble. These men and women, they're good men and women, they're just like you and I. I tell myself all the time, the only difference, Bill, between you and that man is where you were born. They're good people that care about their families. His wife says, we're starving, you've got to send some money home. But he got himself in trouble gambling. And his paycheck's going to pay for his gambling addiction. And the thought of his wife and children starving was more than he can bear. He took his life. I can tell you this, when we went back year 2, they were all ears. You're talking about predominantly a Christian nation is what they would consider themselves. Out of that 100 people, 16 of them got born again. We talked to them about a 12-step program. We address every one of those individually, and then we've put together, my church runs a recovery program at our church, and so we know a little bit about it. This is our 9th year. And so we've put together one just for them. Our church has created a video curriculum. We teach them how to use it. But see, here's the challenge, is it for them. You see, again, the only difference between me and that man that's over there, or my wife and the woman over there, is where we were born. And poverty amplifies their problems. It's the enemy, and it takes advantage of them. These men and women are moved around the country. That's one of the reasons, that's one of the ways they maintain security. So there's no collusion going on between guards and inmates. So they move these men and women around the country, and they're often a long ways away from their families. And when you're away from your family, what do? You find something to occupy your time. And so they get to drinking, or maybe some drugs, or they get to gambling, or they find another relationship. And so we've been given an open door of opportunity to help people, all right, with their hurts, their problems, and their addictions. So let me wrap. I want to turn this to Dana. You know that I have found this. I've been pastoring. This is my 38th year pastoring. I'm not a missionary. I'm just a pastor who makes a mission trip. I never go and think I'm never going home. No, I love to go. I'm glad I'm a pastor. Yeah, it's the difference in grace. I'm a pastor, But that's okay. You go there and I love on them. And don't you be thinking I don't. I love on them chaplains. And I've hugged the neck of a man who confided in me that he slapped his wife around. I go over there like a pastor. And I have found this in all my years of ministry. Everybody wants to know about the power of God in their lives, but their biggest problem is unforgiveness. Unforgiveness is man's biggest problem. And the same is true in Houston, Missouri, and the same is true in Kenya. And the unforgiveness that they may harbor in their heart from their childhood, or in the marriage they're in, or in the prison system they're working for, is unforgiveness. So if you can't forgive, it can't be forgiven. So we give that a tremendous amount of attention. If you just fast forward just to the picture, we're standing out in front. It's the chapel at one of the prisons, and that's one of the groups. That's there at Kisumu, and each one of those faces represents lives. And behind those pictures, because see, in the end, I got lots of numbers, but I can tell you, I got a lot of good stories. See the supernatural happen every time I go. And I'm just a messenger. If you went and did what I did, you'd see the same results. I've heard about people, everybody that prayed for got healed. I've never seen it in the United States, but last time I went to Kenya, every person I prayed for got healed. Now, if you'd have been there, it would have been you. My name's Bill. If you'd have been there, you'd have seen every person healed. I saw a blind man seeing. I seen a deaf person hear. Person got hit by a car, had broken ribs, got healed instantly. My name's Bill. Thank you for allowing me to go represent you. That's what I say. Thank you, Jim, for allowing me to go. Yeah, Jim and Kathleen done me a favor, allowing me to represent AFCM. Again, when you see the pictures of the chaplains, and you see the pictures of these officers, we all feel sorry for the inmates, but all these people have real needs in their lives. But the answer is the same. I'll say this in closing. We got 55 sponsors, and what we're looking for is 25 more sponsors. And we just keep believing, hold fast, He gives us the power to make wealth, to get wealth, you understand? And there's enough money out there somewhere within AFCM or within a relationship, to somebody in AFCM to meet all these needs. And we could get in 25 more prisons. We just multiply the amount of people, increase the numbers of people that are going to, get through the Bible school, have a life change. And when you change a life, they can go home and they can have a life. But if we don't change their lives, they go home, and many times there's nothing there anymore. $2,500 sponsors a Bible school for the first year. $750 cost again, you're not just putting in a Bible school, but you're ministering to the chaplains and you're ministering to the officers. And then we maintain it $125 a month or $1,500 a year. If you become a sponsor, you get the name of a prison. So you can pray for it. You get the name of the prison chaplain, so you can pray for him. And then if you'd like to go, as Pastor Jane and Pastor Jeff are going to do, you can go over and minister to one. Thank you for your time. God bless you.